Hi, my name is Mary-Pat Hector, and welcome to the Okay But Listen podcast, a raw, unfiltered podcast of young people amplifying other young people's voices and pushing the boundaries, going beyond our political echo chambers. I'm so excited about today's conversation because for the past few months, people have been asking what happened in 2024. Why did the Latino vote shift the way that it did? Well, I'm excited to say that our guest, Antonio, has been organizing and at the forefront of civic engagement and, pushing and encouraging the Latino community to show up and vote. And he's going to walk us through what happened and support us in pushing back some narratives or trying to understand what can the left do to win the trust of this very important demographic. Antonio, how are you today?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thanks for the invite.
So I want to say thank you again for coming on such short notice and being one of our first few, one of our first few guests on the Okay But Listen podcast. Y'all, the moment that I saw Antonio for the first time, he was in a suit, okay, and he looked so good, and I was like, you could just see a person who's like, they were so pretty. Like, Antonio was, like, just put together. I was like, you know what? I think I want to be his friend. I feel like he would be like, Mary, get it together. Like, your life's a mess. He just seems like one of those people that just has it all together.
You got it together too, Mary.
Listen, I don't know. Maybe, but I feel like being friends with Antonio will get me together. Nonetheless, Antonio, a lot of people consistently ask, like, what happened in 2024? But before we get into the analysis of everything, I just want to learn a little bit more about you and, like, your origin story and what pushed you to get involved in this work.
Oh, I appreciate you doing that. Seldomly do I get to talk about myself because we always focus so much on the work. But I come from a very humble upbringing. I was born originally in Michoacan, Mexico, and migrated to the country at the age of 3 with my parents. They were seeking economic opportunity. They were seeking healthcare access. They were seeking education opportunities for their family. And that's why they made the difficult decision to come to America. As a matter of fact, when I close my eyes and I think back to the earliest memory my brain can produce, it's of my 3-year-old self crossing the border into the United States. At that time, I obviously didn't know what was happening, what was going on. But I would obtain a title that would try to limit me for the rest of my life, which was undocumented. And I was an undocumented immigrant for the vast majority of my life until recently, where I became a permanent legal resident of the United States after a long, long, long period of time. And so I am very well aware of the challenges that communities of color, particularly immigrant communities, face. I'm very intimately aware of how broken our immigration system is. And because of that, I got motivated to advocate on behalf of our communities and fight for an America as good as its promise. Like Representative from Texas, Barbara Jordan once said, America, all people want is you to be as good as your promise, the land of the free, opportunity for all, which on paper is good. But this country has never really delivered that, particularly for some of us. And so people always ask, why'd you get in politics? Listen, I don't come to politics because it's attractive or sexy or fun or cool. I come to it because I see it as survival. I see it as a way to defend the communities that I love, the family members that I cherish, and to create opportunities for folks that are coming behind us. And so right now, we are in really unprecedented times, but I'm encouraged by the determination and the resiliency that my community has seen and has withstand in the past. And I tap into that. I tap into that cultural zeitgeist, that cultural brilliance, that strength, that power that Black and brown communities embody and have historically throughout generations, because we need to tap into that brilliance now more than ever. Our ancestors were up against much worse, and they were relentless, and we must commit to do the same.
Absolutely. And I just feel like, it always feels like we have to fight. And it shouldn't have to feel like that consistently.
Oh, yeah.
But for the past few months, I feel like our communities are consistently in a state of emergency.
Yeah. I always say my family and I came to America and immediately fell in love with the nation that never fully loved us back. Mm-hmm. And it's like that person you're dating that you're like super into and they're just not They don't love you the same. They don't love you. They don't appreciate you the same. They don't value you the same, although they say they do.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you have to come to terms with how much you value yourself and where you want to position yourself. And this, like I said, this country in a lot of ways has made a lot of progress over the decades and generations, but there's still a lot of work to do. And right now, unfortunately, we're going backwards in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I'm like, that progress is now
Diminished
completely.
Yeah.
And it feels like we have to kind of organize from ground zero.
Yeah.
But this time there's so many other factors at play that, contribute to I like the media and social media and online. And like I was just mentioning, to someone not too long ago about the fact that, billionaires now control the media.
Yeah.
So they, the narrative is whatever they want it to be.
Yeah.
That we have to kind of like, we're up against, on top of the struggle.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's a little different, because I feel like while we've been here before, we haven't.
Yeah.
It and what 2024 showed me was that, even what we knew about our work or even this space is not what it even was in 2020.
It's evolving. It's modernizing. But like we have to, because listen, let's look back at what democracy is in America. America was founded on a democratic principle that allowed white land-owning men to vote. That's who democracy was built for. They never took into account women. They never took into account Black and brown people. And so we're operating in a system that never took into account that we were going to be engaged citizens. And so we must modernize. And you talked about digital and the grip that tech billionaires have on the digital platforms. I see it as a double-edged sword. Yes, absolutely, they're in control of the narrative. But simultaneously, I believe that digital organizing is a new frontier. And this last election, you saw both candidates really tap into TikTok, tap into social in really unprecedented ways. And I think that we've seen a digital curve. Let's take it back. In 2008, an incredible leader rose to the stage, Barack Obama, and he tapped into YouTube and Facebook like never before. He organized and mobilized people through these inspirational messages and speeches that went viral on YouTube, created clips on Facebook, and captured the attention of those people. Next, in 2016, a robust, chaotic candidate came onto the scene and dominated the new platform, Twitter. And a lot of people could make a case that Twitter gave Trump access to the mass people in a way that catapulted him to the White House, because he was the Twitter in chief. He was managing the country through Twitter and still is. And now in this last election, we saw TikTok come front and center. We saw the Kamala HQ become viral sensations, and Team Trump wanting to duplicate that success immediately, even though at both of the candidates at one point in time had talked about the challenges of TikTok and had encouraged perhaps limiting or banning the platform. They both ultimately used it because they saw it as a megaphone to reach young folks.
Yeah. So if you had to explain, and we'll go back to the election a little bit, if you had to explain the Latino vote in 2024 utilizing a song, what would it be and why?
In 2024? I'm gonna go with Messy from Lola, because it was just I think so many contradictions, so much misinformation, disinformation, a lack of intentional outreach, a lack of cultural competency and communication strategies. Here's the thing. The Latino electorate is not a subsection of democracy. Yeah. It is American democracy itself. There's over 60 million Latinos in the United States. Over 32 million of them are eligible to vote and citizens. This is a massive amount of political power. I come from Texas. I was raised in Texas. I've organized in Texas for over a decade. And the amount of Latino power in that state alone should galvanize the attention of the Democratic Party and have the courage to invest. I always say Texas is not the problem. It's the solution. It has the second largest electoral prize on election night. If you win Texas, you have a permanent lock on the White House.
And I think a lot of progressive funders don't even like investing in Texas.
Because they don't think that it's worth a return on investment. They don't think that Latinos will turn out and vote because they historically haven't. But we have a cyclical problem, and I'll break it down. It's very simple. Donors don't invest in Texas. You don't invest, we don't knock on doors. We can't get the message out. We can't mobilize them. We can't create ads. We can't run radio commercials. Because you don't run the commercials, you don't do the outreach, they don't turn out and vote. And then you go back to step one, which is like, oh, they don't vote, so we're not going to invest. And we're on the cyclical problem. They don't invest, we don't mobilize, they don't vote. And then they don't invest, we don't organize, they don't vote. We have to have courage. We have to lead. We have to stop being on the defense and start going on the offense. We can leave no boat unturned. The Latino electorate is not a monolith. We want to talk about everything. And I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later, but I would love to discuss the ins and outs of the zeitgeist of the Latino electorate.
Absolutely. As a young person who organizes in this space, the assumption this year was that young people were just going to vote more progressive. This is the most diverse generation. They're going to vote more progressive. They care about progressive issues. I think what we didn't focus on a lot was the economy, right? In a lot of the discussions that our students were talking about, they were talking about repro. They were talking about, and those are important.
Right.
We had some wins in like Nevada and in Arizona, but the economy, which felt like a boomer issue, right? Which shouldn't, right? It's an American issue, but like the economy was what drove a lot of young people to the polls. And a lot of Latino voters. I think it's like 43% of Latino voters supported President Trump. It is an even higher number when you think about Latino men. Why do you think that is?
So two things. One, I've had this conversation with different academic scholars, particularly in behavioral patterns of Latinos in the Valley in Texas and in the border towns that have in recent years turned more Republican than before. And so when you look at that as a microcosm of the country, you realize that the Republican Party of Texas has invested in those communities. They've built community centers where they're helping Hispanic communities with filing their taxes, getting jobs, economic opportunities. And so what you're seeing is an electorate that's responding to who's going to help me out. Who's going to help me put a roof over my head? Who's going to help me feed my kids? Who's going to put food on the table, get me a good job? And unfortunately, Democrats have lost the message on the economy. Republicans have lied their way and deceived the American public that they were going to create jobs, that if Donald Trump was going to make the economy soar. We're less than 100 days in, the economy could not be in worse shambles. This president has lied. It's a con. It's the biggest lie of them all. But the economy is super important. Why? Because young people in particular are starting to come to terms that they're graduating college with a mass amount of student debt. And a long time ago, you used to go into college, you would get a good paying job almost guaranteed because you had that degree. Now there's oversaturation of degrees. So everybody has a degree. Most people have a degree. And because of that, the work market is more competitive. You're not just guaranteed that job because you have that degree, but you are guaranteed that debt.
Yeah.
And so people are trying to think, wait, well, should I actually go get this degree or should I just start hustling and make my money? And the reality is that people are not seeing a college degree as a solution to their problems anymore. They can't afford to go to a concert. They can't afford to go see Beyonce or Taylor Swift. Shit's too expensive. They can't afford to buy a house. They can't afford to rent an apartment. And so they're coming to terms with like, wait a minute, how am I supposed to create a life for myself when I can't afford to live?
Yeah.
And we missed the mark. Abortion, reproductive justice is absolutely crucial and should be guaranteed to everyone. But this election was about the economic underlying pain that many American households are struggling with even till this day. And what we need to come to terms with is that there is a massive income inequality that it has been happening and being promoted over the last decades that has landed us now in a place where we are so unequal in terms of economy, where just a small amount of people own 90% of the wealth in this nation. And unless we recognize that the people in power are just there to make themselves richer, and we start promoting and amplifying champions of the community that are going to fight for us to get a seat at the table and a piece of the pie, we're going to continue to go down this slippery slope.
I mean, I feel like, I don't understand. I mean, we know that it was a lie.
Yeah.
I think more American people are starting to realize that. Other than loyalists.
Yeah.
I know that 64% of our country right now are still in economic shambles.
Yeah.
I know that it probably isn't going to get better anytime soon.
Yeah.
And So I often wonder, like, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
And what's the path forward?
Democrats need to build an ecosystem that centers a strong working class economic message.
With that, you need money in the space
Yeah.
to do that work.
Yeah.
And our funders are pulling out now more than ever, when you would think
They're
that
skeptical.
this is the time for them to double down.
Scared.
They're scared.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. They're afraid of retaliation. They're afraid of business partnerships and personal relationships getting in the way.
Yeah.
And so it's hard for us to, think about what tomorrow will look like, or how are we collectively going to fight this thing, this giant. And it's not even just one thing. It's like 100 things all at once if we don't even have the money or the support to do it. But I'm interested in talking to you a little bit about, and going back to Latino vote, what happened in 2024. And, I feel like a large contributing factor with how Latino voters, and you, of course, correct me if I'm wrong, showed up the way that they did is because a lot of people, specifically on the left, centered the conversation on immigration policy.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's what they talked to Latino voters about, immigration policy, when they did have an opportunity to talk to Latino voters. Thinking about men in general as a whole.
Yeah.
Not just Latino voters, but just men. A lot of men were not contacted by an organization or a campaign. The only time they heard anything about how to vote or where to vote or who they should vote for was on social media. And, listening to the propaganda and what's happening. Podcast culture. Yes, we're on a podcast, but we all know what I mean by podcast culture. Like, that is what was driving the conversation during the election. Do you think that contributed a great deal to the left's inability to mobilize Latino voters in 2024?
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. Look, there's a perfect storm here. There's an ecosystem of disinformation and misinformation. Lies are being told nonstop on social media. Latinos consume, a lot of young folks also consume predominantly their news and their information from online platforms. And so they're being sucked into these ecosystems, these chambers of just negative or mistruths, negativity or mistruths. And I think that a lot of people got conned. They fell for it, and they believe that Donald Trump was going to be the savior that came and delivered economic opportunity and prosperity for their communities. The other thing is that, to your topic about immigration, I've been organizing communities of color for over 10 years and working specifically with Latino communities, and it never fails. September, before the November election, the candidate comes down to town, probably to some church or a community center, and does a whole speech about immigration. And that's all they talk about. Then they leave, ask for the vote, and they never come back. And then they're surprised because they don't win the Latino electorate. And it's like, listen, immigration, as an immigrant myself, is very near and dear to our families. Many Latinos have mixed status households. We care about the issue and we care about a solution. But at the same time, we also care about healthcare. We're the largest uninsured population in the country. We're dying, literally dying, because we don't have access to healthcare. We're having to decide whether we can afford to go to the doctor. And climate change. Latinos work in industries that are construction industries. They're outdoors. They're landscaping. They have the most to benefit from a climate justice, clean energy environment, because we're literally burning alive on this planet. And we need candidates that need to come to our communities and talk to us about solutions for renewable energy and industries or climate change. When it comes to a plethora of issues, gun violence, even LGBTQ issues. There's so many topics that the Latino community would want to have a seat at the table and be part of the decision-making process so that we can architect the future of this country. But unfortunately, they only come and talk to us about one issue. They see us as a singular electorate, and we're not. We're not. The electorate is massive. It's not monolithic. It needs culturally competent, multilingual outreach, and that requires investment. And it requires for the philanthropic and donor base to recognize that in order to win in America, particularly over in the next 40 years, you must make sure that the Latino outreach campaign is front and center and launches earlier than it ever has before. Normally, you don't get a Latino outreach campaign until like you're in the general, never in the primary. And Latinos aren't stupid. We see what was happening. We see that we're being ignored, we're being neglected, and then all of a sudden you want our support because you're 200,000 votes down and you got it in my community. Listen, okay, you got to show up for us when we need you, deliver policies that benefit us, and continue to prioritize our voices from the very beginning. The other thing that I'll say is I've seen candidates be like, oh, but I Google translated my website to Spanish.
Yeah.
Dude, we need more than a Google Translate. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, not even with the literature that goes out. I mean, there's a certain way you speak to certain communities, right? Or like, how I learn Spanish. Like every Spanish country is not the same.
Exactly.
Every Spanish-speaking country is not the same. And I know if you're speaking to a Puerto Rican, it's not how you speak to a Mexican. It might be a little bit different if you, in the Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
It's different contextually. Yeah. And so those things matter.
Absolutely.
And then also ensuring that you just have access to materials. Because some people do prefer to speak in their native language.
Yeah.
And that should be acceptable. I know in Georgia, that's been a very, very big fight. And you're no stranger to Georgia, specifically in some of our, much larger communities.
Yeah.
When people vote, we have so many different languages that are now, offered in, just certain polling locations just to make sure that people are able to exercise their political agency.
Yeah.
But it took a lot of fighting from a lot of immigrant communities to do that.
Well, it's intentional. The reason that America is a patchwork of electoral policies, for example, the early voting dates in Texas are different than the early voting dates in Pennsylvania. They're different than the early voting dates in Michigan. When and how you can cast a ballot depends by state. That is by intention to dilute, to confuse, and to make you be like, dude, I've got 2 jobs. I'm trying to cast this vote in between my 2. I don't got time for this. Like, I need it to be simplified. We need a national electoral process that makes it easy and accessible. If we pride ourselves in being the #1 democracy in the world, that democracy needs to be accessible to all. Right now, it isn't, and that's intentional. They want to make sure that there's low voter turnout because that's how they win. That's how Republicans win, at least.
And I mean, it's feeling like it just gets worse every election that we do win. And so post 2020, we know on the state level across our country, there have been a lot of policies that disenfranchise, voters of color and voters at the margins. And now it's even worse. We know that the SAVE
Act,
is happening. And, for so many months, I've been telling my family members, like, make sure you get a passport, make sure you get your passport, make sure you get your passport. And now, half of our country, they don't have their passport.
Yeah.
A lot of people, feel like a lot of people, it takes a lot to have to get access to your birth certificate if you're not in the state that you were born. Each state has their own process too when it comes to accessing your birth certificate. And so, this is another level of disenfranchisement.
Voter suppression.
Right? Like people who get to afford the opportunity to travel outside of the country, that's a luxury. A lot of people in my community don't have access to passports. A lot of people at the margins don't have access to passports. And so, I do see that, the SAVE Act and what's even happening in certain states regarding voter access and real ID is going to be very detrimental to our communities and how they show up in 2026. We're going to do our part to make sure that they're prepared and ready to fight this fight. But it's just sad to see. But I do want to go on a little softer note.
Okay.
Because we've been going in all time.
Yeah.
But I want to do on a softer note. So we have this segment here called Uncancellable.
Okay.
So I will pretty much ask you a question. I want you to just kind of, vibe out with me, answering them to the best of your ability. Sure. Right?
Let's do it.
So Gen Z gets called lazy for not voting. But if you had to blame one thing killing youth turnout, if that's gerrymandering, boring candidates, being due, like, what do you think is the real culprit to young people not voting?
Oh, that's a good question. So 2 things. One, first, I got to say, That's a myth. Gen Z has voted in record numbers since they've been eligible to vote. You can take it back to 2018, even further than that. There has been unprecedented youth voter turnout by Gen Z. This last cycle, obviously, there was a little bit lower turnout than the last presidential cycle, but there is an upward trajectory. Folks that say young people don't vote, that's just not factually correct. Look at the data.
And the data showed that, I mean, the last election was the most historic election that we've ever seen in our country. Yeah. And despite the fact that there was a slight decrease compared to 2020, 2024 was still like the second largest election in a very, like, since like,
forever.
Forever, like literally since forever. And so, you know, I do want to kind of push back.
Gauge how we metric. Gauge how we monitor that. The other thing is, like you said, so what is the one thing that that I would say limits Gen Z the most? I think it's, and this might be a hot take, but
this is it.
The two-party system.
Yeah.
Gen Z does not identify as Republicans, and they don't identify as Democrats. They are all about vibes. Who's going to help me the most? Who's going to deliver on my behalf? And who's going to make sure that we're proactively moving the country forward? That's what young people care about at the end of the day. And I think that we have a two-party system that is hell-bent on staying a two-party system, and they fall back into their corners and don't allow for a fair exchange of ideas that kind of lands better with people that are a little bit more in the middle or want a little bit different than what we currently have.
So you mentioned the two-party system. So if both parties were on a dating app, what do you think both of their red flags would be?
The red party's flag will probably be misogyny and racism. And the Democrats' red flag would probably be indecisiveness and lack of commitment, I would say.
Okay. What is your toxic organizer trait? My toxic organizer trait is I hold people accountable. I use this example every time. So my friend was on the phone with me. She was just talking. She's like, oh my God, I'm so hungry. I was like, oh, girl, where are you going to go and eat? And she's like, oh, I'm going to go to, you know, Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, we supposed to be boycotting. You can't go to Target. You can't go to Chick-fil-A. Like, what are you doing? You cannot do that. So my toxic organizer trait is reminding people that we're supposed to be boycotting.
You're committed.
Like, look at what's happening in this country right now. We cannot support establishments that support.
They don't support us.
What's happening?
Yeah. What I would say is spreadsheets. I'm on the phone with friends, family, and they're like, hey, let's go to dinner. Okay, let me get the spreadsheet ready. I'll tell you where, where we're going to go, who's picking who up, what time do we arrive, what are the locations, who's got dietary restrictions. You know what I mean? Like spreadsheets. Organizing.
So I have somebody like that on my team. We call him Mike. Yeah. Mike is going to see this episode. Mike.
Shut up.
You were Mike. And like legitimately, I said on a call the other day to Mike and Liz, I was like, you know, I would hate to go on vacation with y'all.
I know.
I would just want to vibe out and y'all want to stick to the.
I need a plan.
The agenda.
We need a TikTok. We wake up at 8. By 9, we're doing yoga. 10, we're running on the beach. Whatever. Yeah.
All vibes for me. I'm not. Don't invite me on vacation. Note to self: when I become friends with Antonio, don't go on vacation with him because I'm gonna have a bad.
No, you're gonna have a great vacation. It's gonna be structured. It's gonna be activities. It's gonna be good.
Okay, so complete the sentence. The quickest way to lose a Latino voter is to...
like be fake. I don't know, like just lack of authenticity. We can smell it. We smell right through the bullshit. We're not here to be pandered to. So the worst way, or the easiest way to lose our vote is just be fake.
So one of the things that I've really just been pushing is like our need to do better at messaging. You know, I feel like cultural competency is something that's extremely important. I know you mentioned that, but also, you know, our messaging on the left and like you were saying, like we can smell the bullshit. But beyond that, like we're not doing what it takes to meet people where they are. And, you know, I'm interested in hearing your take because this is what you do, right?
Yeah.
You know, do you feel like the left didn't do all that they could in 2024 when it comes to messaging, and what can we do moving forward to construct a better message to mobilize Latino voters and show them that, voting for issues that are progressive are just as important.
Yeah. The left has an obsession with being politically correct, with being polished, with delivering a message that's gonna resonate, and what's really gonna resonate is you being authentic, genuine, clear, direct, straight up. And we don't do that. We are scared of that. And on the other side, you have someone who's unscripted, unfiltered, unabashed. This is who he is, and that's why he's connected authentically with people. I think on our side, we have a couple of folks like Greg Casad, Representative AOC, Representative Jasmine Crockett, who are speaking truth to power, who are speaking in a way that's not formulated for them, that's just authentic. And we always talk about we got to meet people where they're at. People are pissed the fuck off. That's where people are at. So if you're not there, then the message is not going to resonate. People want to see you be angry. They need a champion. It brings me back to when Trump's first term was happening, and we saw then Senator Kamala Harris on the Intelligence Committee just grilling these men, just boom, 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 prosecuting the crap out of them, right? And in those clips, she would go viral. People, the nation began to love her because you saw a champion, a fighter for people. You're like, oh, she's holding their feet to the fire. But then as the vice president, I think, continued the campaign, or Democrats continued the campaign this year for 2024, we saw a more subdued, a more polished, a more, I would say reverence, very demeanor change. And that's great. I recognize that she's an incredibly intelligent and an influential and powerful woman as the vice president while she was running. But we also needed just the raw feeling, the authenticity, the commitment to the fight in a way that you and I or our friends share about it at the dinner table.
Yeah. And, I wonder when we'll get past that. I will be honest, I think a lot of times politicians are afraid of that cancel culture. I know we just did Uncancellable, but I think that they are afraid of saying something or getting it wrong.
I don't think I think we need to lose fear of that, because the other day there was a lot of pressure after the Tex Gate, where their national security intelligence people were on a group chat with a Atlantic reporter. And then there was this public push for Trump to fire them. Yeah. And his response was I'm not going to fire anybody just because you tweeted about me and are telling me to do it. I'm going to do whatever the hell I want. He pushed back in a way that I was Democrats could never do that. Democrats would never do that. They would automatically expel, fire, demote whoever that person was.
Every time.
Yeah, yeah.
And I feel we kind of have to have the balls.
Yeah, we have to double down. We have to recognize, obviously hold people accountable when there is mistakes, but at the same time have the courage to move forward with I like bold and fearless leadership. That's what I want.
Bold and fearless leadership. That's what we all want.
Yeah.
That's not what we're getting right now. No. There's the small but mighty few.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested in knowing what can we do to push those individuals to speak up more.
One of the things that I think is really successful right now is we're seeing organizations show up to town halls to support Democrats who are speaking out, because they, just like companies that are backing us, Harvard just came out and pushed hard against the president and said, no, we're not going to, lick your boots and do whatever you want. We're an independent organization, academic organization. Same thing. We need to make sure that people recognize that, no, you've got our support. We want more of that. Senator Booker, more of that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Jasmine Crockett, more of that. Yeah. And showing up and showing these people that they're putting their necks on the line, that we got their back. Yeah. Or these companies, organizations that are putting their neck on the line to make sure that they're upholding diversity, equity, and inclusion, academic institutions that are doing that, we got your back. You know what I'm saying? Because people often or seldomly realize how fucking powerful we are. The reason that communities of color are under attack are because we're the biggest threat to the status quo. I'm going to say that again. The reason communities of color are under attack is because we're the biggest threat to the status quo. Because if we recognize within ourselves the power and the potential that we would have, we wouldn't just decide the next presidential election. We would set the course, the legislative priorities for this nation for generations to come. And that's what we need. We need people that are hungry for that are passionate for that. And for me, that hunger comes from seeing my parents struggle to put food on the table. From seeing my parents miss meals to make sure that we got fed. You know what I'm saying? Like when you come to this space, not to advance your political career, not to advance your political expediency, when you come to this space to actually fight for people that are struggling day in and day out, you get different results. And we need to make sure that we recognize that what we have right now is a status quo that don't want to ruffle too much feathers. They want to show and be theatrical and position themselves for another role, another step up. But at the same time, we need authenticity, and we need to show up for those people that are showing up for us to make sure that they feel the love so that they can continue to fight, because it's scary. It's scary to be up against a tyrant.
Not just authenticity, but I think that for so long I won't say played it safe. I think we did what we were supposed to do. We followed the rules, but we're following the rules with people who aren't following the rules themselves.
Exactly. The game's changed.
And like the game has definitely changed. And I feel like, for example, you know, we think about President Biden's last days. I'm like, cancel the student debt. You know, like there are certain things that I feel like, you know, closer to that date when the Supreme Court made certain decisions, and like I think he was still trying to be noble.
Yeah.
I think he was still trying to.
We have statesmen in him. I mean, he was a leader that
honestly,
you know, showed America what a president's supposed to be like.
Yeah.
And that would have been great 10, 20 years ago. But right now, it's a different game. We have a different opponent. We're in a different fight. And you need exactly what you said. We need that ambitious, forward-facing message. You also, earlier, you said, what happened in 2024? One of the things that I was critical about President Biden on, and grateful for all the progress that we did under his administration. But one of the things that I was critical about him in his reelection campaign at the beginning was that elections are all about people and about what are you going to do for their future. And his entire message was, reelect me because look at everything that I've did in my first term. Okay, great. But I need the plan for the next term. Yeah. What is the plan for the next 4 years, and how are we going to be ambitiously moving towards that? How are you going to deliver on behalf of people? How are you going to deliver healthcare for all? How are you going to make sure that reproductive justice is secured? How are you going to make sure there's an economic opportunity for people that have been left out historically? How are you going to balance income inequality? How are you going to make sure that women get paid the same as their male counterparts? All of these are conversations that I know the President Biden cares deeply about, but I think you're right, was walking a little bit too cautious to not get burnt.
Too cautious, but not only that, just doing what he felt like he couldn't do but wanted to.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we've seen now a president who, in less than 100 days, had the whole country in array.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, we're doing a lot around...
country, the whole...
The world.
The world. Economic collapse. I mean, like...
The world. And, you know, it's not just him. It's billionaires like Elon Musk and others who are like controlling the narrative for us. And, you know, people are struggling. I think that, you know, I won't even put it on him anymore. Like, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
I think what you said matters, right? Like what we need now are more leaders to show us now that there's someone that we can stand behind and stamp, so that we can get young people to support more progressive candidates.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like, despite how young people voted in 2024, that doesn't mean that's not how they're going to show up in 2026 or 2028. They could honestly flip the script. You know, I was speaking to CJ Pearson, who is a really, you know, a young person in the GOP. And he's like, oh, well, President Trump's joking about having that third term. I'm like,
he's not joking.
I think
that's no joke.
That's a joke.
Yeah.
No one jokes about the state of our democracy. If we do have that next election, I feel like we need to put in the forefront a candidate who's ready to be what we want them to be.
Yeah.
Unapologetically, and resist and push the envelope for the people at the margins.
Yeah. I want, to your point, I want someone that's going to be able to punch the bully in the nose and fight back. But I also want someone who can articulate a message for the future of this nation. Like, we often are very proud of America as a leading global leader. But when we pride ourselves in being this advanced society. But the reality is, like, let's talk about it. In an advanced society, you wouldn't go broke because you went to the doctor.
Yeah.
In an advanced society, you wouldn't have to worry about clean air or clean water. In an advanced society, you wouldn't have to worry about lead in your pipes and your drinking water. In an advanced society,
in the soil. I mean, right here in Georgia, you know, and I only know this is my brother's like going into farming, but right here in Georgia, you know, it's hard to plant in the soil.
Yeah.
Because of so much lead and just toxic bullcrap in our soil. And so we're looking at alternative ways to grow produce. In Georgia. You know, where you've been able to grow produce since the transatlantic slave trade. You know, being real, and so it's sad. But that's just our reality right now. Or the fact that people are like really thinking about how they're gonna eat. I was literally talking to a friend of mine the other day, and she was like, "Girl, as long as we have beans and a bag of rice, we will make it through this recession. Like, our people know what to do with beans and a bag of rice." I said, "You know what? When I think about every marginalized group, I think we all know what to do with beans and a bag of rice. But that shouldn't have to be our reality."
Not anymore. The thing is that people have fought that fight so that we wouldn't have to deal with that anymore. You know what I'm saying? And like, my goal is that we fight these fights now. There's always going to be fights. But that we fight these fights now so that our future generations don't have to fight this fight again. You know what I'm saying? And like, here's what I think. Republicans are so damn hell-bent on the past and taking us back to 1950, 1960. And I say, look, if you want the past, you can have it. But the future, that belongs to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I don't want the past. The past wasn't good for my people.
And like, also, like, to your point, like, we need a candidate that's going to project that advanced society. What does it look like to move forward? How do we make sure that women don't have to go 3 states over to get an abortion or have
even give birth
or die giving birth?
Honestly, I gave birth in Georgia, and when I had my daughter, I was terrified. One, I was a stressful pregnancy because we were going through this election. But also just giving birth, like, it was if I didn't have when I tell you it was thick in that room, and I told my friends too, I was like, listen, as long y'all just make sure I don't die on this table. But they had to advocate for me every step of the way. And they literally were there the whole time making sure that I was straight. But if they weren't there to advocate for me, you know, I don't even know. I could see how people lose their lives giving birth.
Oh, I mean, Black women are dying all across this country.
We shouldn't have
giving birth to children, and it's something that can be addressed, can be tackled, can be fixed, can be corrected if we choose to invest and to give a damn. But America doesn't care.
So we want to move into our segment Red Flag, Green Flag, and then we'll get some questions from young people who have some questions for you. And so I'm going to ask you some questions, and I want you to tell me if this is a red flag or a green flag.
Let's go.
All right?
All right.
So, using Bad Bunny songs at campaign rallies without understanding the lyrics.
Red flag.
Red flag, okay.
Although I do love Bad Bunny, but come on now. You got to know what you're...
LOL. Now, my brother loves Bad Bunny too, and he don't know Spanish at all. He's literally still trying to pick 2 and 2 together. I don't know what he said the other. I don't know what he was like. They're trying to make. He's in Spanish class. He's like, they're trying to make me learn navy blue and.
But not gonna lie, like, Bad Bunny's accent is
blue.
Is so unique to him. It's so, you know, the way that he raps and spits. It's so unique to him that sometimes I don't even know what the hell he's saying. Should be true.
A campaign that hires Latino staff who don't speak Spanish.
No. Red flag.
Red flag. Focusing Latino. All these feel like red flags. Okay, hold on. Okay. Establishing no, only engage. All of these are red flags. LOL.
I believe it, because like they are. Yep, I believe it, because like organizing Latino communities has never been a priority of either political party, and it's going to be to their detriment. They're going to realize, they're going to wake up in about 10 years and realize, oh shit, the entire electorate is predominantly Black and brown, and we'd have no plan for them.
Well, what would it mean to build that year-round engagement or structure to continue to mobilize? Because, like, for me, when I think about mobilizing the Black community and organizations that have been invested in, and historically the South hasn't.
Yeah.
I think Georgia just started really getting invested in,
Recently.
5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
Then they turned to North Carolina. And now it's like Georgia, North Carolina, but like there's the South completely. And like there are Black people in Mississippi and Louisiana who are doing great work. They need that infrastructure and support. So, but we do this work 365,
Let me
right?
blow your mind. You said there's Black people in like other states or whatever. Okay, so like going back to my home state of Texas. The largest Black population in the United States is Texas. And people don't know that. They think Texas, they think white cowboy.
Yeah.
No. Texas is Black and brown, baby. Texas is majority Hispanic and Black. And you don't see that. You think you have this preconceived opinion of what the South is and what Texas is. But Texas is Black and brown. And that's why we have Republicans shaking in their boots, because they recognize that the people they've been oppressing are now about to be the majority of the population in the state. To your question, it's like, I think wait, what was the question?
Just what would it take for us to create that year-round infrastructure?
So to create
outside of just showing up to mobilize Latino voters around an election.
Look, so what culturally competent means is like, and we say terms in the progressive space that I think we need to like really break down for people to understand. Culturally competent means understanding where your people are at and how they engage and communicate with one another. So that means showing up to car shows, showing up to flea markets, showing up to concerts, Spanish-speaking concerts, showing up to jarepeos. There's like different places where our communities gather and congregate and build community in, and there's no political resurgence or conversations happening in those spaces right now. And if we were able to tap into those spaces, reach out to those spaces, and show up not just when we're 6 weeks out from an election, but year-round, we're able to build and harness a multilingual, multicultural movement that is dependable, reliable, and trustworthy, and that can come out and will come out cycle after cycle. But in order for us to do that, big philanthropy and big donors need to have the courage. They need to have the courage to do so and put their money where their mouth is. And right now, it's not about just like, oh, do I have funds to invest in this organization to go do this culturally competent campaign? It's like, do I want to protect and defend democracy for its sustainability purposes? And if that's what you care about, then you have to do this. It's not an option. It's a necessity. And right now, it's more important than ever before. Democratic backsliding is happening internationally. Democracies are becoming authoritarian regimes, and America is no exception to that.
Yeah. So I do want to go really quickly into the questions from the young people, and they're right behind us.
So,
hi, my name is Yvette, and I am from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I currently attend Marquette University. My question is, are campaigns too focused on immigration when addressing the Latino community? And are there other key issues that should be focused when addressing this community?
Yeah, a great question from Yvette. And shout out to Wisconsin, big and important state for Democrats as well. Look, immigration, like I said, is important and near and dear to our hearts. And we must continue to build towards comprehensive immigration reform that's going to give people an opportunity to succeed. And I also think we need to talk about immigration from an economic lens, because this man in the White House keeps trying to throw people out, but he doesn't realize that what he's pushing out is the labor that is keeping this country afloat in a lot of ways. And our communities are part of industries that are literally not sustainable without Black and brown hands. And but that shouldn't be the only topic. We care deeply about healthcare. We care deeply about gun reform. We care deeply about climate change. We care deeply about student debt. There's so much that Latinos care deeply about. Not only are they engaged in it, but are yearning for policies and legislation that are going to advance their well-being. I always say, growing up in Houston, an oil capital, we have the energy corridor that runs through Houston. Our children are the ones breathing the toxic fumes from the oil refineries and petrochemical refineries, while John Cornyn and his cronies are filling their pockets with the money from oil and gas. And we've got to stop that. And the only way that we're going to do that is we make that a front and center issue for communities of color as well, beyond immigration. There's so many things that Latinos care about deeply.
Absolutely. Yeah, another question, I believe.
Hi, my name is Christy, and here's my question for Antonio. How can campaigns avoid tokenizing Latino voters and instead build real, long-lasting relationships with our community?
Now, I can already tell you, Christy is from Maryland.
Shout out to Christy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or Baltimore.
Yeah. We talked about this earlier. Our communities can smell the BS a mile away. You need to show up in authentic ways. You need to make sure that you're speaking with tangible plans. I no longer want just aspirational messaging. I want your 90-day plan of action. What does it look like to hit the ground running to make sure that we're advancing healthcare access for Latino communities? What does it look like to hit the ground running to make sure that women are not dying at giving birth? What does it look like to make sure that people have access to generational wealth, which for Black and Brown communities isn't even a topic that we discuss?
No.
We need to make sure that they have financial stability and generational wealth, and we need to make sure that our little ones are understanding how they can tap into those elements from an early age.
And also that starts now. I mean, while we are boycotting these major corporations and companies, we need to be reinvesting that into our communities and shopping local.
That's right.
I was even thinking about like the food that we had today. I was telling Jada, even though we did get something from a major brand, but I was like, at least something that we get, I really want to support a local business. Where we are filming right now is a Black-owned business. It's run by and owned by a Black woman, right? Like that is where it starts. That is what community looks like.
1,000%.
Like, you know, from the camera.
These are lessons from our ancestors.
Audio, right? Like, and you know, we're not getting a lot of money from philanthropy anymore, right? And you know, I'm like, anytime I spend money, it is a political statement.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
it's your capital.
anything I buy moving forward, you know, or major investments I make, it has to benefit the community in some way.
Yeah.
And so I am often mindful of where we shop, where we eat, you know, all of those things.
Yeah, and I was saying like those are lessons from our ancestors. They've taught us to make sure that we keep bringing it back. And I always talk about like, what does success look like? Recently, somebody asked me like, what does success look like for a successful Latino politician? And I said, I think that success should be measured not just on whether we get a Latino elected or a Latina elected. It should be measured by when you do get elected, you turn around and you pull up the whole community with you, and you create spaces to the left and to the right of you where you can occupy those spaces with the people that got you there as well.
Absolutely. And let's see if we have one more question.
Hi, my name's Alondra. I live in Wisconsin. My question or my issue with the political campaigning that's being done is, why do they view Gen Z as a monolith instead of separate communities? Instead of being built by separate communities that have, you know, different cultures, different upbringings, and they don't all relate to the same message.
This administration is terrified of you, really, really is, because they know that if you were to activate yourself and push our country through a progressive future, you would accomplish it. In America, young people have always been at the tip of the spear. From the civil rights movement, where John Lewis was 18, Dr. King was 25, to the Vietnam movement, where college campuses were at the place in the epicenter for the calls for peace. Young people have always been the tip of the spear, and it will require young people to continue to speak out and hold these elected officials accountable. We just talked about how our money is our capital. Where we spend our money is important. Where you spend your time is also important. I know that college students, sometimes you don't have a whole lot of extra funds to, like, you know, throw out, but where you show up, when you do show up, where you make yourself felt, plays a big role too. And I think that the more that you show up at your local representative's office, at the town halls and things of that nature, and letting them know that you don't fuck with what they're doing, will go a long way. Because often is the case, and this is something that people don't know, but when people say, like, call your congressman, call your representative or whatever, to put pressure on a bill or something that's happening in Congress, you know who calls? The people that actually call are Republicans. They will blow up a Democrat's phone and lines, but Democrats seldomly match the same level. And that's a lot of pressure. Like, because they have to take every single one of those calls and document it. So, like, your time is also important. Make sure you spend it wisely, make your voice heard. Young people have more power than I think they're giving credit for.
So before we wrap up, I just have one final question for the listeners who want to get active. Well, you know what? No. What gives you hope about the future of Latino political engagement?
Well, I'll tell you one thing, that we're so fucking young. Latinos are an incredibly younger electorate, and boomers and other demographics are aging out. And so the future of this country is blacker and browner than ever before. That's got people terrified. And what I say, like, don't be scared of that. Why are you scared of that? We want the same for this country. We want opportunity. We want prosperity. We want growth. We want economic development. Allow us an opportunity and a seat at the table, and we'll make America greater than it's ever been.
Thank you so much, Antonio. I really appreciate you for joining us today. Thank you all for listening in to Okay But Listen.